In this video, we will look at how to use the University of Utah's Farm Analysis Historic Rainfall tool to help you make more informed PRF decisions. This tool allows the producers to examine how rainfall has varied historically within their specific PRF grid. It provides a way to look back at historical rainfall patterns and see how frequently different months and intervals have experienced below average rainfall. First, using your search engine, look up USU Farm Analysis DTS. Then select the box labeled Pasture, Rangeland, and Forage Insurance. Select the state you would like to analyze. For this example, we will be looking at historical Idaho data. Then select the county that your operation is located in. It will then prompt you to find your grid. In the last video, we saw how to find your grid ID. Use the same number that you were given using the USDA Decision Support tool. Then, put in your selected coverage level that you would like to use on your policy, your productivity level, and the number of acres you wish to insure. And finally, after typing in the intervals and allocation percentages that you want to insure, click Submit. The first box that appears after submitting your information details the same information we were introduced to from the USDA tool: base value, dollar protection, and total protection. The values are slightly different to those from the USDA tool, however, as we are now using Twin Falls County instead of Owyhee. This is a good example of how those values differ depending on what area in the state you are located in. It is also important to note that the information directly following this is only from the previous year, without the option to see data from farther back. The next box shows you an easy-to-read guide to how much you as the producer paid for the policy, how much the government subsidized, the indemnity you received, and the final net profit or loss you received from your policy. The Payment Details box shows what was received for each allocation interval. The April-May interval accounted for 60% of the insured protection. The producer paid approximately $1,814 in premium for this interval. Historical rainfall during the year did not fall below the trigger level, so no indemnity was earned. For the August-September interval, the producer paid approximately $1,690 in premium, and the rainfall remained above the trigger level, so again, no payment occurred. In the historical summary box, you see that over the most recent 5 years, this strategy would have produced a positive return in 2 years. That's a profitability rate of 40%, and average return over that period was 24.63%. In the last 10 years, the strategy would have generated a positive return for 3 years. While profitable less often, the average return remained positive at 4%. Looking at the last 20 years provides the most complete picture. The strategy produced a positive return in 8 years, or about 40% of the years analyzed. Clicking into the historical data section, we will now look at how rainfall patterns have differed in past years, as well as the effect on indemnity payments. In the historical data section, you will find many different graphs. The first graph shows how the selected PRF policy would have performed historically in this specific rainfall grid. It allows producers to evaluate whether their chosen coverage intervals have historically responded to drought conditions. The blue line represents the policy's annual return after accounting for both premiums paid and any indemnity payments received. When the line is above zero, the policy generated more in indemnities than it cost in premium. When the line falls below zero, the producer paid more in premium than they received back. The gray bars represent indemnity payments. Larger bars indicate years when rainfall was significantly below average and the policy triggered larger payments. When evaluating this graph, producers should focus on whether payments occurred during years when their operation actually experienced forage shortages. If the policy consistently pays during drought years and provides protection when it is needed most, then the selected intervals may be a good fit for the operation. This graph shows the historical rainfall index for the selected grid and coverage intervals over time. It helps producers see how often rainfall has fallen below their chosen coverage level, and how frequently PRF payments may have been triggered. The blue line represents the rainfall index for each interval. The green horizontal line represents the producer's selected coverage level of 90%. Whenever the rainfall index falls below the green line, a payment may be triggered. Those points are highlighted in green and represent intervals where rainfall was less than 90% of the historical average. This graph is useful because it helps producers identify long-term drought patterns within their grid. Producers can evaluate how often rainfall has historically fallen below their selected coverage level, and whether their chosen intervals are capturing the periods when drought risk is greatest. When using this information, producers should focus on the intervals that consistently experience below average rainfall during critical forage growing periods. Those intervals often provide the best opportunity to align PRF coverage with actual drought risk on the operation. Please keep in mind that the past two graphs' data is incomplete and do not show data for 2024 or 2025. However, the information is still valuable when observing historical patterns. This graph compares rainfall indexes across individual years and allows producers to see how rainfall patterns have varied from one year to the next within their grid. Each colored line represents a different year. The y-axis shows the rainfall index, where 100 represents average rainfall for that interval. The farther a line drops down below 100, the drier conditions were during that interval. By comparing years side by side, producers can see whether drought risk is concentrated in certain intervals. This graph highlights how variable rainfall can be from year to year. Some years experienced rainfall indexes near 200, indicating nearly double the historical average rainfall, while other years dropped below 50. This graph shows the premium rate associated with each PRF coverage interval. In other words, it helps producers understand which 2-month periods are more expensive or less expensive to insure. Each point represents one of the 11 intervals from January-February through November-December. The higher the line, the higher the premium rate for that interval. Notice that premium rates are not the same throughout the year. In this example, the most expensive intervals are July-August and August-September, while October-November and February-March have some of the lowest premium rates. This graph helps producers identify which intervals have historically generated the most indemnity payments within their grid. Rather than showing rainfall, it shows the frequency and magnitude of payments that would have occurred during each interval. This graph can be especially useful when selecting coverage intervals. Producers may compare these historical indemnity rates with their forage production cycle to determine whether the intervals most likely to generate payments also correspond with periods most important for forage growth. This graph combines both the cost of coverage and the historical indemnity performance of each interval to show which intervals have provided the best overall return over time. The lines represent average return rates for the past 5, 10, and 20 years. Values above 0 indicate intervals where indemnities have historically exceeded premium costs. Values below 0 indicate intervals where premiums have generally been greater than indemnities received. When combined with the rainfall, indemnity, and premium graphs, the return rate graph helps producers evaluate which intervals may offer the greatest value for their specific operation.